What does that song mean to you?
Well, it's kind of a Led Zeppelin sampler, isn't it? It has everything that we do in it somewhere.
Imagine being in one of the greatest rock bands of all time, creating some of the most iconic riffs in history. But there's one riff, one legendary moment that wasn't yours. Jimmy Page, the mastermind behind Led Zeppelin's thunderous guitar work, crafted riff after riff that shaped rock and roll. But there's one that didn't come from his hands. What if I told you that the most surprising Led Zeppelin riff wasn't written by the man himself? Let's dive into the mystery. Jimmy Page, the riff machine.
You need cool air, baby, I'm not fooling. I'm gonna send you back to school air.
From Whole Lotta Love to Black Dog, Jimmy Page had a gift for making guitar riffs that were instantly recognizable. His playing wasn't just fast and aggressive. It had soul, swagger, and an unmistakable groove. Every note he played carried the weight of blues, psychedelic rock, and sheer innovation. As Zeppelin conquered the 70s, their music defined an era. Page, a former session musician, knew exactly how to craft a riff that would stick in your head for decades. But amidst his vast catalog of legendary licks, there's one that stands out because it wasn't his. John Paul Jones, the unsung genius. Most people think of John Paul Jones as Zeppelin's bassist and keyboardist, the quiet genius in the shadows while Robert Plant and Jimmy Page stole the spotlight. But what they don't realize is that Jones was a master of composition, arrangement, and yes, writing killer riffs. During the early 70s, Jones was experimenting with complex time signatures and offbeat rhythms.
Sometimes I go for a walk, which is my favourite way of writing it actually, is to take a piece of a little pad, manuscript pad, and or maybe a recorder sometimes, but I like to get notes down. I like to get...
John Paul Jones had a riff, and that's the sort of riff that you know of Black Dog. Okay, so he had that, but that's what it was just a riff.
Invariably I'll write something I can't play, and so then I just have to in the Zeppelin days, Black Dog was written like that, on a train, with a piece of paper. And a notation system that my dad showed me, where you use the values of the notes and you just put little numbers underneath, like 1 to 7 for the scale and plus and minus for flat and sharp.
Inspired by the funky, syncopated style of James Brown and Howlin' Wolf's Smokestack Lightning, he came up with a riff that was unlike anything Led Zeppelin had done before. It was slippery, unpredictable, and full of groove. When he brought it to Page and Bonham, they were intrigued. But it wasn't easy to play. The riff sounds straightforward, but the way it plays against Bonham's drumming creates an illusion. It never quite lands where you expect it to. Even Page admitted it was tricky at first, but he knew it was something special. When Zeppelin hit the studio to record Black Dog for their untitled 4th album, often called Led Zeppelin IV, they had to figure out how to nail this unique riff. Page added his signature Gibson Les Paul tone, and Bonham's drum work made it groove even harder. The result, one of the most infectious guitar riffs ever recorded. But there's something unusual about Black Dog. Every time the riff plays, the band stops for a moment, only to come back in an unexpected place. That wasn't by accident. John Paul Jones designed it that way to mess with your sense of timing. It's a musical trick that keeps you on edge, making you want to hear the riff over and over again. Even Jimmy Page later admitted, "Jonesy came up with that riff. I had to work on it, figure out where to come back in." That's right.
Come back and figure it out and then put it down on disc these days, tape in those days, and build it up, keep a library of bits and pieces, and that's good, yeah, that'll fit with that, and fit it all together. With the Vultures, we were all in the studio. It's a nice organic process, it keeps moving, it's nice.
The riff was so unconventional that even Jimmy Page had to take a moment to master it. Why this riff matters. Think about it. One of Led Zeppelin's most iconic guitar riffs wasn't created by the band's legendary guitarist. Instead, it was the work of the bassist, a reminder that Zeppelin's magic wasn't just about Page's guitar or Plant's vocals. It was about 4 musicians pushing each other to new heights. It also proves that a great riff isn't just about shredding, it's about feel. Black Dog grooves hard because it plays with your expectations. It's funky, bluesy, and unpredictable. Everything that made Led Zeppelin great. And that's why this riff, the only one Page didn't write, is still one of the greatest in rock history. The legacy of Black Dog. Decades later, Black Dog remains a staple of classic rock radio. It's been covered, imitated, and studied by guitarists around the world. And while Jimmy Page's name is forever linked to Zeppelin's legendary riffs, this one belongs to John Paul Jones. So next time you hear Black Dog, remember, sometimes the unsung hero writes the most unforgettable riff of all.